Know that? How do they know that this thing, you were referring to this eternal being that we've called God, G-O-D, arbitrarily,
right.
that you say has to be rational in order to judge morality. How do we know that that being chose Jesus, will apply Jesus' sacrifice to everyone's lives and judgment?
Okay, you're a very good question. It all hinges on the trustworthiness of Jesus Christ. And the only way to ascertain whether Jesus is trustworthy is to examine his lifestyle, his teachings, his death, and if he really rose from the dead. Ma'am, it's real simple. If you die and rise from the dead, I promise to listen very carefully to everything you have to say.
I guess you were talking a lot about earlier about how there is a requirement for an absolute morality for us to make decisions about, for us to make objective decisions about what is good and what is bad. God is required for that.
No. Every atheist friend of mine makes objective decisions about what is right and wrong.
But
so I never said that.
We require a creator to point back to legitimize why they are good or bad.
No. You can have many reasons why you define good as good and bad as bad. You can define it well.
That they are objectively correct, right or wrong.
In order for objective morals to exist, God must exist. That is my point. You have to believe in God in order to understand real objective morals. You can understand them. The problem is, you have no basis for thinking they're real if you think there's no God. My simple statement is, in order for objective morals to exist, God must exist. My statement is not, you need to believe in God in order to know objective moral truth. No, every atheist friend of mine knows objective moral truth. And what I try and do with my atheist friends is reach inside of them and say, you know that objective morals exist. Now, ask yourself, in light of how real those objective morals are, does that not demand a moral lawgiver, some type of God? That's my point.
You may try to squander me with communist Russia again, but I may try, if I could argue that this objective morality that you're proposing, you're only defining it in one way. I really think that objective can mean objectively agreed upon, where the consequences of actions are considered through reason and logic, and especially from an empathetical point of view on how they affect people. Now, you're probably going to say that that's because I am endowed with a moral compass from the Creator. Would you say that, or would you agree to that? That's the reason why I can actually examine these issues, is because I am endowed with that ability from God. Is that argument even falsifiable?
No.
Then why is it good?
Because of the way you live your life.
No, if the argument's not falsifiable, it's not a good argument.
It's falsifiable by your life. It's verifiable by your life.
How?
Live your life as if morality's relative and see if you can pull it off.
That's what I do currently.
I don't think you do.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not. I just said I don't think you do. Maybe you do. But I don't think if someone rapes your sister that you can honestly say, from my opinion, from my perspective, that's wrong. From your perspective, it's right. I'm not right, you're not wrong. It's all relative. I instead think you will say to the rapist of your sister, that was absolutely wrong. And as soon as you start saying absolutely wrong, you know
I don't
you've
think I
moved
would
out
say
of
it's-
moral relativism.
I don't know. I'm not sure I would use the word absolute to tell him it's wrong. I'm pretty sure that would say might say that is wrong in view of society, and society agrees upon something and has a reason for believing it. Now you're going to point to communist Russia. I understand. Like, I really
I'm
do.
not going to communist Russia. I haven't even thought about that. I don't know what you're referring to.
You don't?
I do not.
You didn't,
I find
you
it
didn't,
very
like,
difficult
15
to
minutes ago
believe
just talk about
that you're going to look into the
Stalin's
face
idea
of the
of
man
a
who's
good
raped your
society.
sister and say, well, from my perspective, it's wrong. From your perspective, it's right. I'm not right. You're not wrong. You're not right. I'm not wrong. It's all relative. I don't think you can live your life that way. And I think that if you stand here saying, oh, no, that's the way I live my life.
Can we take a
I
moment to
question
examine
that.
the reasons behind why one person says it's correct and why the other says it's wrong?
Well, fine, but that's a different discussion.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. The discussion we're having right now is, if a man rapes your sister, is that objectively wrong, or is that just
I'm
subjectively
saying
wrong?
you can put forth a moral framework that converges to something that appears like your objective moral framework through reason and discussion.
Fine. Your reason tells you the rape of my sister is wrong. The rapist's reason tells him the rape of that woman was very good.
Who has the more
very-
legitimate position based on actual external viewpoints and reality and consequences of the situation?
Very good question. If in reality, morality is just a creation of the human mind, nobody is right, nobody's wrong. You have your opinions, the rapist has his opinions, you happen to disagree. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. You can't live that out.
You can reach an agreed upon consensus which is based on evidence
Yeah.
and consideration of the issue at hand.
And what was the agreed
rapist's
upon
reason-
decision
the
at the time of
rapist's
the
reason
Dred
for
Scott
why
decision in
his-
the United States?
What?
What was the agreed upon decision at the time of the Dred Scott decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in the United States? What was the agreed upon position of the value of a black person?
You might be referring to the Three-Fifths Compromise?
Yeah, 3/5 the value of a white person.
Junior high school history? Yeah.
Just because people agree on something and take a vote doesn't give you the basis of an objective moral.
Are we we're completely neglecting the reasons behind why they made the decision they did?
I could give a rip. I am convinced
Because
that all
obviously
human
to
beings
you,
have
it's not a
equal
good one,
value
of
and
course.
dignity. I don't care how many
I don't
reasons you
value-
can pile up that black people are inferior to white people. I really don't care. I am convinced that in reality, all human beings have equal dignity. Therefore, I don't care if all you folks vote and say black folks are 3/5 the value of white folks. I'm convinced you're wrong from my evaluation of moral experience. It's that simple. It's not that highfalutin philosophy, that's for sure.
You're saying that it's incorrect based on your worldview,
No, your moral experience.
based on your moral experience. Sure.
Exactly. Which is, you see why I'm sticking it to you flat out. I'm saying I don't think you can live out your belief system, which says it's all relative, when your sister is raped. I think you're going to move rather quickly from
return?
moral relativism to objective morality when you say to the rapist, that was absolutely wrong.
One reason why you say that, you said, I don't care how many reasons you can pile up for
Right.
why a black person is only 3/5 the value of a white person.
Correct?
It necessarily intervenes with my worldview that everybody is created equally and has the same value.
And my moral experience.
And your moral
My moral experience is that black people are not inferior to white people because we're all human beings created by God. I cannot look at a human being.
Why do you have to stick in because we're all human beings created by God?
Because if
Why
this
can't
man
that
is
be?
an
Why
accident,
can't a conclusion that human beings are equal in value be reached upon independent of God's opinion?
because if this guy and I are just accidents, we don't have any innate worth. We're cosmic accidents.
you have developed a conscience
Great.
and the ability to reason,
Bravo.
you can create a framework
Yes.
that works.
Yes.
I guess.
So what? We're still accidents. That's reality. We are hunks of primordial slime
How do we
evolved to a higher order. That's what we are in reality if there is no God.
It
And
is
to
a very
argue that we
difficult
have
question.
worth
How do we
is an
assign our
excellent
worth?
exercise in human arrogance. Hey, you know,
I-
we really have worth.
Can I just interrupt
Why?
you for
Because
a
we
second?
agree it. You know, we affirm that we have worth. Big whoop. Haven't you considered the vastness of the cosmos? Haven't you
Yes.
considered how small we are? A little speck of dust on a little planet called Earth that's a speck of dust in light of the vastness of the cosmos. For us to stand here and say, we have worth. Why, Cliff? Well, because we say we have worth. Big whoop, Cliff. I mean, who cares?
We have worth relative to the human experience. To
What does that mean?
what do you mean? What does it mean?
What does it mean to have worth relative to the human experience? What does that mean?
Where we can interact and,
Yes, we can interact.
discuss things.
Yes, we can discuss. So,
So
Porpoises
we
discuss
assign our
in their own
we
unique
assign
way.
our worth relative to that framework, relative to the Earth in one solar system, in one galaxy, in one cluster, etc.
yeah.
We understand that relative to the universe's scale,
Yeah.
we are literally nothing. However, we have events and we have things that are important on this scale to us.
Yeah.
We don't have to derive worth. We derive worth from the system that we have working here.
All right. So guess what? We put together a system that says we are the greatest. We.
Why do you
This is true of us. We're
why
the
do you try
greatest.
to
That's-
trivialize something like that?
I'm not trivializing it. I'm trying to push you to your logical conclusion. That's all I'm trying to do. You're up a creek without a paddle, and you're trying
No.
to try and form a basis for human value. But it's totally arbitrary. It's just like him and I saying, hey, we agree, we're the greatest. So guess what? We're the greatest. Why, Cliff? Because we affirm it. Why is that? Well, we figured out that we're better than everybody else. We're the greatest. And we figured it out. And I'm
guess
glad you guys
I guess
are
I can
laughing.
try and put it-
It is preposterous. Totally preposterous. How about this one? I am the greatest. Who said that? Muhammad Ali. Now, if he's referring to, is he the best boxer at the time? Okay, fine, no problem. But I am the greatest? What do you mean? Well, I affirm that. I'm the greatest. Well, good, go ahead and affirm it all you want, but in reality, you're not the greatest. And you can go ahead and affirm in whatever way you want to that you have worth, but in reality, your number came up in a Monte Carlo game, sir. You're the result of chance and fate, if there is no God, and to try and argue for human worth? No, it's no basis. You're an accident, man. That's all I am. Face reality, if there is no God.
I understand that it's highly, I mean, human life is something of a miraculous proportion, sure.
No, not miraculous if there is no God. Accidental proportions.
Okay.
I find it
However you
amazing.
reconcile the difference between those two, I don't really know. I mean, they aren't mutually exclusive.
Sir, either there's an intelligent mind that created us with the order and design and the rational minds that we have, or else this all is a cosmic accident. Now, if it's a cosmic accident, that has profound implications on our value.
I mean, do you want, like, you can tie morality into an ecological framework. Like, for instance, the social act of murder would not be. There's no if a sizable portion of a population actually agreed that it was okay to murder its own organisms,
Yeah?
it wouldn't exist.
So what?
So we necessarily that is like an axiom to our existence.
Good, so that's all that is the drive to exist. That's what makes it right or wrong, right?
That
the
is-
drive to exist.
That is literally the premise of Darwin's theory. Yes.
Okay, good. Then I certainly trust you can understand why I want to wipe out handicapped people, because I have to pay a lot of taxes and a lot of money to support handicapped people. So if really the basis of morality is survival of the fittest, let's get one thing straight. I don't want them handicapped people draining my natural resources. And if that doesn't make sense to you, I don't think you're being fair with me. So if that's the basis of morality, survival of the fittest, then let's let the fit
think
survive.
just
And let's
about
blow off
every-
them handicapped people.
think
And let's get
every
into eugenics
organism-
with Hitler.
With a basic ability to reason, actually has visibly shown like empathy towards members of its own society in stress or in distress.
You
a member
think
of
you
his-
can verify that to help handicapped people helps our society?
I believe it might keep people that are tied to those handicapped people, family, for instance, mentally stable to know that their family members aren't going to be exterminated one day. Sure, I think that has some value.
Good. That's one perspective. The other perspective is we have limited number of resources. Handicapped people are a drain, and they don't let us climb the evolutionary ladder, so therefore we will wipe out the handicapped people in this world so
It's
that
not
we
necessarily true either.
can
I mean,
climb the evolutionary ladder.
I don't mean to pin handicapped people as test subjects by any mean, but assisting people with certain physical and mental disabilities actually can further us as a society. Because
Okay.
we are
I'm glad
now
you
injecting.
believe that, but I can promise
Sure.
you, if you don't think it's rational
If
for
you
someone
think
to
that
say,
somebody who
wait a
is normal
second,
one day and
ethics
gets
is
brain
based
damage in
on
a car
survival of the
accident the
fittest.
next
If ethics
day.
is based on survival of the fittest, there's absolutely nothing wrong with me wiping out the unfit people if ethics is based on the survival of the fittest. It's totally reasonable. And my point is, no, wiping out handicapped people is not an option, because morality is not based on survival of the fittest, and human worth is not based on survival of the fittest. We're created by God for a purpose, be we low IQ, high IQ, be we Michael Jordan or a kid in a wheelchair. We're all human beings created in the image of God. That's why we better not wipe out handicapped people. That's the basis for it, for my ethics, my
I
worth.
think one of my points is that populations of species that do not have our level of capacity of reasoning do the same thing. They help members of their society that are hurt or that are in trouble. I mean, when you say handicapped, that doesn't necessarily mean, mentally handicapped or something like that.
Physically handicapped?
So that kind of empathy is not exclusive to human
Right.
beings, which are apparently the only things that are created in the image of God. So why does a creature that is not made in the image of God have a reasoning capacity to construct a moral, like a good framework?
I don't know.
Maybe it's not supposed to be exclusive to humans. Maybe it's something that it develops over time naturally. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't notice lions eating tofu. I notice lions eating zebra.
Sure.
And we don't arrest them for murder. And I don't
Yeah.
notice any white male shark asking a white female shark if she wants to copulate. He forces her to. We don't hold them responsible in the same way that we hold human beings responsible.
You're right.
There's
we
something
don't.
about the human being when it comes to rational thinking, free will, that makes us hold human beings responsible
Maybe we hold
for
them more
rape and
responsible
for
because
murder.
they have a
We
greater
don't hold the
capacity to
lion
reason
or the
and sort
great
out
white
their
shark
actions, the
responsible for rape or
consequences of their
murder.
actions.
There's something unique about us human beings.
Maybe we have the most developed brain in the animal kingdom thus far.
Yeah, I wouldn't say maybe. I would say absolutely we have a more developed brain.
Could that be a reason why we put them on a higher plane of expected action? Or I worded that very poorly. Yeah, a higher standard. Thank you.
Well, sir, from your worldview, it's all relative. So
Okay, I guess retreat on that.
live it out.
No,
Live
I mean,
out your
I'm
worldview.
asking you a question because human beings, less developed organisms exhibit behaviors of what you might even deem as ethical or empathy. They might
I don't
exhibit
know about the
empathy.
ethics of my dogs or lions or whatever. I
don't
never
think
had a
that-
good
you don't think
conversation
that
with
other
an animal, so
animals
I
can
don't
be
know.
empathetic towards
I
other
can't answer
members
you
of
about
their
animals.
species.
I don't know about animals, okay?
Oh, okay, that's fine. I guess we're done.
All right. Thank you, sir.
So you just told me that if I do not believe in God, if I am not a follower of God, and that if I only live for something like science, then I cannot live for science, right? Is that what you just told me?
Right.
And that is why?
Science is a study of process, how nature works, how something proceeds. It's a wonderful branch of knowledge, but it's impossible to base a family, relationships, on science. It's impossible to go on a scientific date. See, if you're going to say, I base my life on science, that's a philosophy. And that philosophy is saying, well, unless you can scientifically prove it, it's not true. But you can't scientifically prove your boyfriend. You can't scientifically prove your family. Instead, in order to have a relationship, you have to love, you have to trust. And love and trust have nothing to do with science. You can't scientifically prove love. You know, you can't get love and put it in the bottom of a test tube and say, here's what love is.
So in that, you're saying that since science is something that I have to prove, right? And that's what I'm living for. Then you are living for something based on love, which is God, right? You base your relationship with God on love for God and love from God, right? So you are basing your life on something that you cannot prove, and I, in turn, have to base my life on something that I cannot prove as well?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody can prove, I definitely cannot prove, that what I'm living for is true.
Right.
The person who says, I live for science, can't prove that that's the purpose of life, to live for science. And obviously, if a person says, I'm dating my computer, that's pretty sad. Because although computers are wonderful, and although biology and chemistry are wonderful, you can't have a family based on biology. You can't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend based on chemistry. Instead, there's got to be trust, there's got to be integrity, there's got to be love, there's got to be respect.
So then you're saying there that there is no reality in love, right? There's no, you cannot, I cannot prove love scientifically, so you cannot prove that it's real and actual? Or the only way you can feel that it's real and actual is by trusting and having faith?
Okay, good question. I am convinced that there are different types of knowledge. Different types of knowledge are not based on blind faith. They're based on evidence, but there are different types of evidence. For instance, historical knowledge is not based on the repeatability of an experiment, it's based on the evidence of eyewitness testimony. Obviously, scientific knowledge, which both you and I treasure and value highly, is based on the repeatability of an experiment. If you can't repeat it, it's not scientifically true. Similarly, in a relationship, a friendship, I can't prove a person, but I gather evidence that the person is reliable. And then I trust the person. If the evidence is the person's not reliable, I'm sorry, I'm not going to trust them. And I plead with you, don't trust people who are going to rip you off.
Right.
Instead, trust people who give you evidence that they really do care about you, they're not going to rip you off, they're not going to hurt you, they really care about you.
Right.
So I would insist, for instance, right now, the reason we're having this conversation is because before this conversation, you approached me and talked with me in a very articulate, very intelligent, very respectful way. I can promise you, Candace, if you'd have come up to me and just gone blah, 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 we wouldn't be having this right now, this conversation. So I, as a thinking human being, and I'm convinced you as a thinking human being also, Candace, base your life on evidence, but different types of evidence. Scientific evidence when you're studying something biologically or chemistry, historical evidence when you're studying history, but also personal evidence when you're building a friendship. I mean, if your father abused you as a child, I don't think you would trust your father too much. But if your father was very kind and generous to you, then you've got evidence he's reliable, and then you would trust him.
So what repeatability do you get from God in order to trust him?
Well, the evidence, philosophical, experiential evidence is that God exists. Historical evidence points to Jesus Christ being reliable. That's why I believe in God. That's why I believe in Christ. Now, when it comes to evidence for God, it's things like order and design, pointing to an intelligent mind. It's things like objective morals, pointing to a moral lawgiver. It's things like, I have a rational mind. Is it more reasonable for me to believe my rational mind comes from the non-rational? Or is it more reasonable to believe that my rational mind comes from a rational being? And for me, Candace, that's a no-brainer. It's so difficult for me to believe that there is no God because I've got a rational mind. If there is no God, what I'm saying is my rational mind comes from the non-rational. For me, That makes no sense. No sense.
So
it's,
you think there's no irrationality in believing that there is a higher power that we cannot see or cannot directly communicate with? I mean, you feel maybe that you directly communicate with them.
oh, there's mystery,
Right.
but not irrational. No, Jesus Christ does not ask us to accept the irrational. But yes, mystery, unanswered questions, absolutely yes. But guess what? You do postdoc work in chemistry. Do you know everything there is to know about chemistry?
There's plenty of unanswered questions.
Exactly.
But is there a route you can take to prove there is a God?
No, you can't prove there's a God. The same way you can prove almost nothing in life, because to prove means to show it cannot be another way. So I could never prove God, I could never prove Christ. But the evidence is that God exists, the evidence is that Christ is reliable. That's why faith in Christ is so wise.
And where do you take most of your evidence? Is it from written word?
Yes.
And do you
Historical
have any,
record.
personal evidence that you
Yes.
take from?
Good question. I have a personal relationship with Christ over the past 40 years that convinces me that he is reliable, that he is trustworthy. But the reason I hesitate often to talk about that is because you can't base your life on my experience.
Right.
That's why I appeal to evidence.
But isn't history all testimonials of people's experiences with Christ?
Yes?
Me understanding your relationship with Christ would help me in building a history of what Christ has done for other people.
Good. Well, I can promise you that Christ has helped me overcome loneliness and fear. Christ has given me the moral power to love my enemy in a way that I was not able to love my enemy on my own. Christ has given me hope of eternal life. And so that's why I am so convinced that indeed he is reliable. Candace, wait a second now. I'm the pastor of Grace Community Church, located in New Canaan, Connecticut. Simply take the Merritt Parkway to exit 37, go to the end of the ramp, take a left onto Route 124, go approximately 1 mile, and take a right into Sachs Middle School. I'd love to invite you to join us this Sunday, 9:30, for our worship service. It's been a real privilege talking with you, Candace. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Have a blessed day.